"Uncle, I know how to save your daughter from cancer," said the poor boy to the millionaire. Richard Blackwell was walking through the halls of Mercy General Hospital in New York City when he felt a small hand tug at his Italian suit. His red, tear-swollen eyes barely registered the presence of the scruffy boy, insisting on speaking to him. "Uncle, I know how to save your daughter," repeated Jaden, an 11-year-old black boy gripping the hem of the businessman's suit firmly. Richard stopped abruptly. How did this kid know about Emily? His 10-year-old daughter had been battling aggressive leukemia for nearly a year, and the doctors had just informed him her chances were dwindling. "Get out of here, kid. I don't have time for this," Richard replied, trying to shake him off. "You don't understand, Uncle. I know Emily. We talk every day," Jaden insisted, his eyes showing a determination unusual for his age. The businessman felt his blood boil. What kind of joke was this? Emily was isolated in the most expensive hospital room with access restricted, to family and medical staff only. "You're lying. My daughter can't have visitors." Richard grabbed the boy's arm tightly. "I work here, Uncle. I help my mum with cleaning. Emily always asks me to stay a little when I clean her room." Jaden didn't back down. Richard let go, confused. It was true Emily had mentioned a friend, but he always assumed it was imaginary, something born from loneliness and medication. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. "What do you want? Money?" The businessman pulled out his wallet. "I don't want your money, Uncle. I want you to listen to me. Emily's getting worse because she's sad, really sad." Jaden pushed the hand holding the bills away. "Of course she's sad. She has cancer," Richard snapped, drawing the attention of passing nurses. "It's not because of that. She's sad because you're never with her. You always come, ask about her tests and leave. She told me she'd rather have a poor dad who stayed by her side." The words hit Richard like a punch. He worked 18 hours a day to pay for the best treatment, the best doctors, the best hospital. How dare this kid question his love for his daughter? "You don't know anything. I do everything for her," he shouted, tears welling up again. "Doing everything isn't the same as being there, Uncle," Jaden said softly, like someone who had already seen too much suffering for his young age. Ms. Dorothy, Jaden's mother, came running down the hall, her janitorial uniform wrinkled from the day's work. "Jaden, for heaven's sake, what are you doing?" She pulled her son away. "I'm sorry, Dr. Blackwell. My son shouldn't have bothered you." "Mum, I'm trying to help." Jaden struggled. "Help how, boy? We're poor. We have nothing to offer." Dorothy lowered her head, ashamed. Richard watched mother and son. The woman looked exhausted, her hands calloused from hard work. The boy, despite his worn clothes, had an intelligent and determined gaze. "Your son knows my Emily?" he asked, his voice calmer. Dorothy hesitated, knowing she could lose her job for letting Jaden talk to patients. "Sometimes he helps me clean, doctor. The girl Emily always asks him to stay a little. I thought it was fine. She seemed so happy." "And what do you talk about?" Richard crouched to Jaden's eye level. "We talk about everything, Uncle. The cartoons she likes, the stories I make up, the places we'll visit when she gets better." The boy smiled. "Today she was crying because you promised to have lunch with her and never showed up." The businessman felt the ground vanish beneath his feet. It was true. He had promised, but an important meeting came up. Something important always came up. "She understands I need to work," he murmured more to himself. "She's 10 years old, Uncle. Kids don't understand important meetings." Jaden took the man's hand. "Come with me, I'll show you something." Dorothy tried to stop them, but Richard signaled for her to let them go. He followed the boy through the halls until they neared Emily's room. Through the slightly open door, they could hear the girl's weak voice. "Nurse Rachel, is Jaden coming today?" Emily asked. "I don't know, sweetie. It depends if his mom needs to clean your room," the nurse replied. "I hope she does. When Jaden comes, I forget I'm sick. He makes me laugh. My dad just makes me cry." Richard felt his legs tremble. He leaned against the wall, his face twisted in pain. Jaden squeezed his hand tightly. "She doesn't hate you, Uncle. She just wanted you to be her dad, not the man who pays the bills," the boy said with unsettling maturity. I don't know how to be a father, Richard confessed, tears streaming freely. My dad was never around either. I thought giving my best would be enough. The best you can give is yourself, Uncle? Jaden tugged the man's hand. Come on, let's go in together. Richard hesitated. It had been weeks since he'd truly stepped into his daughter's room. He'd rush in, check the monitors, talk to the doctors, but sitting beside her, just being present, he hadn't done that in months. The door opened, and Emily turned her pale, bald little face. Her eyes lit up, seeing Jaden, but dimmed when she noticed her father. "Hi, Dad. You can come in. I know you're probably in a hurry," she said, her voice resigned. "Emily," Richard swallowed hard. "I'm not in a hurry today." The girl's eyes widened, skeptical. Jaden gave the businessman a little nudge, encouraging him to step closer. "Jaden told me you two are friends," Richard said awkwardly, sitting on the edge of the bed. "He's my best friend," Emily smiled weakly. "The only one who doesn't treat me like I'll break any second." Richard looked at the poor boy who'd given his daughter something all his money couldn't buy, normalcy and real friendship. "Emily, forgive me." The words came out in a whisper. "I thought I was protecting you, but I was abandoning you." The girl began to cry, and for the first time in months, she stretched out her thin little arms to her father. Richard hugged her carefully, feeling how fragile she was, how precious those moments he'd wasted were. Jaden smiled and made to leave, but Emily called out, "Stay, Jaden, tell that story about the boy who befriended a dragon." "But your dad's here today," the boy hesitated. "That's why. I want my dad to know the stories that make me happy." Emily held her father's hand with one of hers and Jaden's with the other. Richard swallowed his pride and prejudice. Here was a poor boy, the son of a cleaning lady, doing more for his daughter than he could with all his wealth. "I want to hear the story too," he said, surprising everyone. Jaden sat on the other side of the bed and began to narrate. Richard watched, fascinated, as Emily's face transformed, how she laughed and interacted, momentarily forgetting the illness consuming her little body. When Dorothy came to pick up her son, she found a scene she never imagined. The powerful Richard Blackwell sitting on the hospital room floor, helping Jaden make shadow puppets on the wall to entertain Emily. "Mom, look, Dad's playing with me," Emily exclaimed, more animated than she'd been in months. Dorothy moved to apologize and take Jaden away, but Richard stopped her. "Miss Dorothy, your son taught me something today that no business consultant ever could. The value of presence," he said, standing up and extending his hand to the woman. "Thank you so much." The cleaning woman shook the businessman's hand, confused and moved. Jaden carefully hugged Emily. "I'll come back tomorrow, okay? And I'll bring that drawing you asked for," he promised. "You come every day?" Emily asked hopefully. "If your mum lets me help her, I'll come," Jaden said, looking at Richard. The businessman understood immediately. The boy was working illegally just to stay close to his friend. The situation wasn't proper, but Emily's happiness was worth any risk. "I'll talk to the administration. Maybe we can start a junior volunteer program," Richard winked at Jaden. That night, Richard called his secretary to cancel all his meetings for the following week. When she protested about the importance of his appointments, he was firm. "Nothing is more important than my daughter. Nothing." The next day, he arrived at the hospital at 8 in the morning, just as Emily was having breakfast. She nearly spilled her juice when she saw him walk in with a bag. "Dad, what are you doing here so early?" "I brought fresh cheese bread from the bakery. Jaden told me it's your favorite," Richard said, pulling out the still warm box. Emily burst into happy tears. It was the first time in months her father had remembered something so simple about her. "Are you staying?" she asked, nibbling on the cheese bread. "I'm staying all day, every day you need me." Richard stroked his daughter's bald head. When Jaden arrived with his mother, he found father and daughter watching cartoons together. The boy smiled, satisfied. "Good morning, Emily." "Good morning, Uncle Richard," he greeted cheerfully. "Jaden, my dad brought cheese bread," Emily offered. While the kids talked, Richard pulled Dorothy aside. "Miss Dorothy, I've been thinking. Your son has a special gift with children. Have you ever considered him studying education? Doctor, with all due respect, schooling is expensive. I can barely afford his school supplies, the woman said, lowering her head. What if I covered his tuition, as thanks for what he's done? For Emily, Richard proposed. Dorothy's eyes widened in disbelief. Are you serious? Very serious. Your son taught me that money can't buy presents, but it can open doors for those who deserve it. Richard smiled. News of Richard's constant presence at the hospital soon spread. The doctors noticed an improvement in Emily's spirits, and she began responding better to treatment. Dr. Williams, the lead oncologist, called Richard for a talk. Mr. Blackwell, I'm amazed by Emily's change. Emotional state greatly influences recovery. It was Jaden who showed me that, Richard credited. An 11-year-old boy was wiser than all of us adults. I heard you're starting a volunteer program for kids to visit young patients, the doctor remarked. Yes, if one boy made such a difference for Emily, imagine what others could do, Richard explained. Of course, with all safety protocols in place. Weeks passed, and a routine settled in. Richard arrived early, had breakfast with Emily, stayed through painful procedures holding her hand. Jaden came in the afternoons, bringing joy and stories. Emily began gaining weight, color returning to her face. The doctors grew optimistic, but remained cautious. Cancer was treacherous. It could return at any moment. On a rainy afternoon, Emily had a crisis. High fever, intense pain. Richard panicked, shouting for doctors. It was Jaden who stayed calm. Uncle, she needs you to be calm. Breathe. The boy held the businessman's hands. Emily is strong. She'll pull through. What if she doesn't? What if I lose her? Richard sobbed. Then at least she'll leave knowing her father was there for her. That's worth more than any treatment. Jaden spoke with wisdom beyond his years. The crisis had passed, but it served as a warning. Richard became even more present, setting up a makeshift office in the next room, running his business without leaving the hospital. Emily, noticing her father's effort, fought even more bravely. Every injection, every painful procedure she faced with courage, always with her father on one side and Jaden on the other whenever possible. Ms. Dorothy, moved by Richard's generosity, doubled her efforts at work. Mercy General Hospital had never been so clean. She also began organizing a group of mothers in the same situation, creating a support network. The junior volunteer program was approved, and soon dozens of children began visiting patients. The children's hospital became a less gloomy place, full of life and hope. Jaden was chosen as the junior coordinator, responsible for training the other children on how to talk to patients without mentioning their illness, how to bring joy without being intrusive. One special morning, Emily woke up without pain for the first time in months. Tests showed significant improvement. For the first time, the doctors mentioned remission. Dad, does this mean I'm going to get better? Emily asked hopefully. It means you're winning, my warrior. Richard hugged her, crying with relief. It was Jaden, Emily declared. He taught me not to be afraid. It was you, Emily. Your courage, your strength, Richard insisted. No, Dad. It was love. Yours. Jaden's, Miss Dorothy's. Love heals, the girl said with conviction. Richard looked at his wise little girl and deeply understood the truth in her simple words. 6 months later, Emily was discharged. She would still need follow-ups, and there were still risks, but she could go home. The first thing she asked for was a party with all her hospital friends. Richard organized everything in the lobby of their building, transforming the cold, luxurious space into a colorful, welcoming place. He invited all the children from the volunteer program, the doctors, nurses, and especially Jaden and Dorothy. During the party, Richard stepped onto the small makeshift stage. I want to thank everyone who saved my daughter. The doctors for their science, the nurses for their care. He paused. But most of all, a boy who taught me that the best medicine is presence, and that love isn't measured by how much you spend, but by how much time you give. Jaden tried to hide behind his mother, embarrassed by the applause. Emily ran to him and pulled him to the center of the room. This is my best friend, the boy who saved my life, she shouted for everyone to hear. Richard then announced the creation of the Emily and Jaden Foundation, dedicated to providing emotional support for hospitalized children and their families. Dorothy would be the coordinator, with a fair salary and the opportunity to make a difference in others' lives. Jaden received a full scholarship to the best school in New York City. On his first day of school, Emily was there holding his hand, facing another challenge together. The years passed. Emily grew up healthy and became a pediatrician. Jaden graduated in psychology, specializing in child patients. Together, they revolutionized compassionate care in hospitals across the United States. Richard completely transformed his approach to business, implementing family-friendly policies and reducing work hours so parents could be with their children. He lost some profits but gained in humanity. Ms. Dorothy became one of the country's most respected social managers, bringing the emotional support program to public hospitals, saving lives through love and presence. On a sunny afternoon 20 years later, Emily and Jaden inaugurated another emotional support wing, this time in a public hospital on the outskirts of New York City. "Remember when you told me you knew how to save me?" Emily asked her childhood friend. "I was a cheeky boy," Jaden laughed. "You were a wise boy." "You still are," Emily hugged her friend. "You didn't just save my life, you saved my family." Richard, now with white hair, watched proudly. Beside him, Dorothy smiled with tears in her eyes. "Who would have thought, Dr. Richard? 2 kids changing the world," she remarked. "3 people, Ms. Dorothy." "You were part of this too," Richard corrected. "Your motherly love, your dignity and work, they were powerful examples." During the inauguration, a little girl, bald from chemotherapy, timidly approached Emily. "Doctor, is it true you were sick like me too?" Emily crouched down, holding the child's tiny hands. "It's true. And do you know what healed me?" Emily smiled. "Love. So much love. And a special friend who taught me to never give up." "Will I have a friend like that too?" the girl asked hopefully. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us so much as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. Just then, a boy the same age stepped forward shyly. He was a junior volunteer in the program, the son of one of the hospital cleaners. "Hi, my name is Tyler. Can I be your friend?" he offered. The girl smiled for the first time in weeks. Emily and Jaden exchanged emotional glances. The cycle continued. Richard took the stage at the inauguration, his voice thick with emotion. 20 years ago, a poor boy taught me the most valuable lesson of my life. Today, I see that lesson multiplying." He paused. "Every child who smiles, every family reconnected, every life saved by the power of presence. It's proof that love is the best investment." The ceremony continued with testimonials from families helped by the program. Mothers cried in gratitude, fathers confessed transformations, children spoke of friendships that saved their lives. Jaden, now the program's clinical director, shared the numbers. Thousands of children served, recovery rates above the global average, families rebuilt. "But don't be mistaken," he warned. "We don't perform miracles. We simply remind people of love's healing power and presence. Every volunteer, every dedicated family member is an agent of healing." Emily added, explaining how medicine had evolved to recognize emotional support's role in treatment. Studies showed patients with strong support networks responded better. What began with an 11-year-old boy's intuition is now proven by science. She smiled at Jaden. The deepest truths often come from the simplest places. Dorothy was honored as a pioneer of the movement. Tearfully, she recalled her hard days as a cleaner, her fear of losing her job for letting Jaden talk to Emily. "Now I see God had a plan. My boy wasn't just making a friend, he was planting seeds of change." She wiped her tears. "Thank you, Dr. Richard, for seeing beyond appearances." Richard hugged Dorothy publicly, breaking social protocols he once deemed important. "You and your son taught me that true wealth isn't in a bank account, but in the impact we make on others' lives." The celebration lasted all afternoon. Children in treatment played with volunteers, families shared stories, healthcare professionals learned about compassion. In a quiet corner, Emily and Jaden watched it all with satisfaction. Their friendship had endured through the years, supporting each other through every triumph and challenge. "You know, Emily, sometimes I still can't believe all that's happened," Jaden confessed. "I was just a poor boy who wanted to help a friend. And changed the healthcare system of an entire country, Emily added. Never underestimate the power of an act of love. Night was falling when Richard gathered the original small group, himself, Emily, Jaden, and Dorothy. He raised a toast with orange juice, Emily's favorite drink during her treatment. To the family we chose, to the love that saved us, to the future we built together, he said emotionally. And to the children who will carry on our mission, Emily added. As they drank, a nurse came running. Dr. Emily, that little girl, Madison, is asking for you and Dr. Jaden. She wants to show you a drawing she made. Emily and Jaden exchanged a glance and smiled. The work never stopped. They followed the nurse, leaving Richard and Dorothy to continue talking. They've grown up, but they're still the same, aren't they? Dorothy watched her children walk away. Thank God. The world needs people like them, Richard agreed. You know, Ms. Dorothy, I've learned more from you all than in my entire business career. And I've learned there are rich people with good hearts, she smiled. You could have sent us away that day, but you chose to listen. It was the best choice of my life, Richard said with conviction. In Madison's room, Emily and Jaden found the little girl holding a colorful drawing. It showed two children holding hands, one bald, one not, under a rainbow. Look, I drew you two when you were little, Madison said proudly. The nurse told me the story. It's beautiful, Madison, Emily praised, moved. When I get better, I'm going to help other kids too, the girl declared. Just like you. Jaden knelt beside the bed. You know, Madison, you're already helping. Every smile of yours gives strength to other kids. Every time you're brave, you inspire someone. Really? Her eyes sparkled. Really? That's how it started with me and Emily. One helping the other, giving each other strength, Jaden confirmed. Tyler, the young volunteer, sat on the other side of the bed holding Madison's hand. Emily noticed the gesture and smiled. History was repeating itself beautifully. Tyler, you still come to visit Madison? Emily asked. Every day, Doctor. My mum works in the kitchen, so I come with her, the boy replied. What do you two do together? Jaden asked. I tell stories, we draw. Sometimes I just sit quietly when she's in pain, Tyler explained naturally. Madison squeezed her friend's hand. He's my guardian angel. When I'm scared, he sings to me. Emily had to step out of the room to avoid crying in front of the children. Jaden followed, understanding her emotion. It's like looking at our past selves, Emily whispered in the hallway. But now they have a whole support system. They're not alone like we were, Jaden comforted her. Thanks to what we built, Emily composed herself, every child who goes through this with support is a victory for us. They returned to the room to say goodbye. Madison was already sleepy, but still held Tyler's hand tightly. Dr. Emily, Mr. Jaden, will you come back tomorrow? She asked weakly. We will, sweetheart. And the day after too, Emily promised. Every day you need us, Jaden added. They left the hospital late at night. Richard waited at the entrance, refusing to leave without his daughter. Still worrying about me after all these years? Emily teased. I'll always worry, but now I know how to show it in a healthy way, Richard hugged her. Dorothy also waited for Jaden, even though he was a grown man. Some things never changed. A mother's love was eternal. How was it in there? Dorothy asked her son. We saw Emily and me version 2.0, Jaden smiled. Madison and Tyler will go far. May God bless those children, Dorothy made the sign of the cross. The four walked to the parking lot, each lost in their thoughts. 20 years of journey, thousands of lives touched, a legacy built on the strongest foundation, unconditional love. You know what's most amazing? Richard broke the silence. It all started because a little boy had the courage to tug on my Italian suit. I was almost scared to death that day, Jaden confessed with a laugh. You were so serious, so important. And you were so small and so determined, Richard recalled. I'll never forget your words, Uncle. I know how to save your daughter. And you really did, Emily held her friend's arm. You saved so much more than just my life. They reached the cars, Richard and Emily in one, Dorothy and Jaden in the other. Before parting ways, they lingered together a little longer, like the family they had become. See you at the hospital tomorrow, Emily asked. Of course, Madison is waiting, Jaden confirmed, and we have the meeting with the Ministry about expanding the program, Richard reminded them. My goodness, for the entire United States, Dorothy marveled. Why not? If it worked here, it can work anywhere. Richard was optimistic. They said goodbye with tight hugs. Each went their own way, but united by the common purpose of spreading the message. Love heals, presence transforms, friendship saves lives. That night, in their respective homes, each reflected on the journey. Richard, in the study of his penthouse, looked at the photo of young Emily beside Jaden at the hospital. He kept it framed as a reminder of what truly mattered. Emily, in her modest resident doctor's apartment, prepared notes about Madison. The girl had shown signs of improvement since Tyler began his visits. Science confirmed what the heart already knew. Jaden, in the simple house he'd bought for his mother, reviewed training protocols for new volunteers. Every detail mattered. Every guideline could make a difference in a child's life. Dorothy in her room gave thanks in her prayers, from the cleaning lady who trembled with fear of losing her job to the nationally respected manager. God worked in mysterious ways. At the hospital, Madison slept peacefully, her hand still entwined with Tyler's. The boy dozed in the chair beside her, refusing to leave her alone. The night nurse covered him gently, smiling at the familiar scene. The story that began with an unlikely meeting in a hospital hallway had multiplied into thousands of others. Every child helped, every family reunited, every professional humanized, was a new chapter in this narrative of transformation. In the weeks that followed, the routine continued. Emily and Jaden split their time between their regular work and visits to Madison and other children. Richard managed the foundation's expansion. Dorothy trained new teams. Madison showed steady improvement. The doctors credited part of the success to the constant emotional support. Tyler didn't miss a single day, even when it rained or when he had tests at school. "You're too young for so much responsibility," a nurse once remarked. Dr. Emily was young too when she saved Dr. Jaden, Tyler replied with childlike wisdom. The story had become legend at the hospital. Everyone knew the poor boy who saved the millionaire's daughter, not with medicine, but with friendship and truth. One special morning, Madison was discharged to continue treatment at home. Her parents, humble workers, wept with gratitude. They couldn't afford private care, but the program covered everything. "How can we ever thank you?" Madison's father asked Richard. "Just keep being present in her life. That's all she needs," Richard answered simply. "And Tyler, can he still visit?" Madison asked eagerly. "Of course, your friendship doesn't need a hospital to exist," Emily assured her. The farewell at the hospital was emotional. Madison hugged every nurse, every doctor, every staff member. But the longest hug was for Tyler. "You're my hero," she whispered in his ear. "We're both heroes," Tyler corrected. "Together, we're stronger." Jaden watched the scene transported to the past. He remembered every detail of his friendship with Emily, how that bond had sustained them through the toughest times. Months later, Madison was in complete remission. Tyler remained his best friend, now playing in parks instead of hospital rooms. Emily closely monitored the case, amazed by the recovery. Richard, inspired by the program's continued success, decided to take an even bigger step. In a meeting with the country's top business leaders, he proposed something revolutionary. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing. Gentlemen, I propose that each company adopt a hospital. Not just with money, but with presence. Executives visiting patients, employees volunteering. Richard explained his vision. The initial resistance was strong. Business leaders claimed lack of time, incompatibility with their work. Richard didn't give up. "I was like you. I thought money solved everything. I almost lost my daughter because of that mindset," he opened his heart. "Today, my company is more profitable than ever. Know why? Because employees who have time for their families work better." Gradually, some business leaders were moved. The movement started small but grew. Within a year, dozens of hospitals had emotional support programs funded and managed by companies. Emily became an international reference in humanized medicine. She was invited to speak at conferences worldwide, always bringing Jaden as her co-presenter. Together, they showed that healing went beyond medicine. At one such conference in the United Kingdom, they were approached by an elderly doctor. "You don't remember me, but I was at the hospital when you were children," she introduced herself. "Dr. Johnson, I saw it all happen." Emily and Jayden were moved by the unexpected reunion. "Did you move to the UK?" Emily asked. "Yes, but I never forgot you two." "You changed how I see medicine," Dr. Johnson confessed. "I've implemented similar programs here. You've inspired global change." The scale of their impact left them speechless. What had begun as a boy's initiative to help a friend had become a worldwide movement. Back in the United States, they found a surprise. Madison and Tyler, now teenagers, had created an online channel sharing stories of children overcoming cancer. Millions of views, thousands of lives touched. "You inspired us," Madison explained. "We want our story to inspire others too. Every video we make, we get messages from kids saying they've found strength," Tyler added. Emily hugged the teenagers, her heart overflowing with pride. The ripple effect of kindness had multiplied in ways they'd never imagined. Richard, watching it all, reflected on the journey. From a cold, distant businessman to a compassionate, present leader, the transformation hadn't been easy, but every smile from Emily had been worth it. "Dad, are you crying?" Emily noticed. "Tears of gratitude, my dear. For you being here healthy, making a difference in the world," Richard hugged her. Dorothy approached, bringing coffee for everyone. Even with an important position, she kept the simplicity and care that always defined her. "You know, Dr. Richard, sometimes I still think this is a dream," she confessed. "My poor boy changing the world." "Our children, Ms. Dorothy. Emily and Jayden are our children," Richard gently corrected. And it was true. The bonds formed in that hospital so many years ago transcended blood. They were a family chosen by love, united by purpose, strengthened by trials. Night was falling over New York City when the group gathered for dinner. Richard had insisted on cooking, a new skill he'd acquired during his years of personal growth. The simple table, homemade, food and genuine laughter were worth more than any lavish banquet. "A toast," Jayden proposed, "to all the children who will find their Tyler or their Emily." "To all the parents learning to be present," Emily added. "To all the mothers who work with dignity," Richard honored Dorothy. "To God, who turns encounters into miracles," Dorothy concluded. They raised their glasses of orange juice, keeping the tradition they'd started at the hospital. As they ate, they shared recent stories, touching cases, and future plans. Madison and Tyler told them about the child in Japan who had begun treatment with renewed hope after watching their videos. A girl in South Africa who found strength in their story. A boy in Canada who convinced his workaholic father to be more present. "It's amazing how a story can travel the world," Madison marveled. "Because it's a true story about real people," Tyler explained. "People see themselves in it." Emily remembered the day she met Jayden, sick, bald, hopeless, how that scrawny boy had become her savior, not with medicine, but with his constant presence. "Jayden, do you remember what you told me on the first day?" Emily asked. "That you'd get better because you had a real friend," Jayden smiled. "And I believed you. Even without reason, I believed." Emily squeezed his hand. "Thank you for never letting me give up." "Thank you for letting me be your friend," Jayden replied. Richard watched the exchange with a warm heart. How many important meetings had he missed for moments like this? How many hugs had he traded for contracts? Life had taught him the true measure of success. "You know, I've been thinking about retiring," Richard announced suddenly. Everyone stopped eating, surprised. "Dad, you love working," Emily protested. "I love living even more," Richard corrected. "I want to dedicate all my time to the foundation, to the children, to you." "What about the business?" Dorothy asked, concerned. "I have capable executives. It's time to trust them," Richard said calmly. "I've learned that presence is worth more than presidency." Jayden stood and hugged the man who had become a father figure to him. "You've already done so much, Uncle Richard. And I want to do more. Every child suffering alone in a hospital is an Emily without her Jayden," Richard said firmly. The decision was made. In the following weeks, Richard organized his business succession. He chose leaders who shared his new values, who understood that profit without purpose was empty. The news of his retirement to focus on philanthropy made waves in the business world. Some criticized it, calling it madness. Others were inspired, rethinking their own priorities. Emily supported her father through the transition, proud of his courage. Letting go of power and status wasn't easy, but Richard had discovered something far more valuable: meaning. With Richard working full-time, the foundation grew exponentially. Hospitals across the country requested their program. Businessmen volunteered to fund it. Families shared stories of transformation. Jaden developed an app connecting hospitalized children worldwide, virtual friendships that provided real strength. Emily created medical protocols incorporating emotional support as an essential part of treatment. Dorothy expanded training to include entire families. It wasn't enough for the child to have support if the parents were emotionally shattered. Care had to be holistic. Madison and Tyler, now high school graduates, announced their career plans. "I'm going into medicine," Madison declared, "like Dr. Emily." "And I'm studying psychology," Tyler added, "like Dr. Jaden." "You don't have to follow in our footsteps," Emily said, moved but cautious. "We're not following footsteps," Madison explained. "We're carving our own path, inspired by you." Their graduation was an emotional event. Richard, Emily, Jaden, and Dorothy sat in the front row, applauding like proud parents. The principal, in her speech, mentioned the two young graduates' story. Madison and Tyler teach us that friendship forged in adversity creates unbreakable bonds. That serving others is life's greatest fulfillment. That love, yes, can heal. The applause was thunderous. At Mercy General Hospital, where it all began, patients watched the live broadcast, seeing themselves reflected in those brave young faces. That night at the graduation party, Richard danced with Emily. Father and daughter, survivors, changemakers. The soft music carried memories of struggles and victories. "Thank you, Dad," Emily whispered. "For what, my girl?" "For teaching me to love myself the right way. For letting Jaden show me the meaning of friendship. For turning our pain into purpose." Tears glistened in Emily's eyes. "Thank you for surviving, for giving me the chance to be a real father." Richard choked back tears. Jaden danced with Dorothy, the warrior woman who had raised him with love and dignity. She wore an elegant dress, a gift from Emily, but kept the same humble grace as always. "Proud of me, Mom?" Jaden teased. "Always have been, son, from the day you were born." Dorothy cupped his face. "You taught me poverty is no excuse for a lack of compassion." The party lasted well. Into the night. Generations mingled, recovered patients, transformed families, humanized professionals, each with their own story, all united by the common thread of healing love. Years later, Emily became director of the nation's largest children's hospital. Her first act was mandating the emotional support program. There was pushback, but the results spoke for themselves. Jaden became an international consultant, traveling the world to implement similar programs. Different countries, different cultures, but the same universal message: presence and love transcend barriers. Richard, now 70, kept the energy of a young man. He visited hospitals daily, sitting at bedsides, listening, offering hope. He became a grandfather figure to hundreds of children without family. Dorothy founded a corporate university, training healthcare professionals in compassionate care. Her students learned that cleaning a room was as noble as performing surgery, when done with love. Madison became a pediatric oncologist, specializing in palliative care. When medical cure wasn't possible, she offered emotional healing. Tyler, now a hospital psychologist, worked by her side. Mercy General, where it all began, became a global model. Delegations came to study the Emily Jaden method. Theses were written on emotional support's impact on recovery. At a special conference gathering healthcare professionals worldwide, Emily was the keynote speaker. Beside her stood Jaden, Richard, and Dorothy, the unlikely family who'd shifted paradigms. "It started with a simple truth," Emily began. "A sick child needs more than medicine. They need to know they matter, that they're loved, that they're not alone. A poor boy taught me that," she nodded to Jaden. He had nothing material to give, But he gave what I needed most, constant presence. Jaden took the mic. And I learned that helping someone heals us too. Every smile from Emily gave me strength to face our poverty. Service has a double, transformative power. Richard shared his perspective as the absent father who nearly lost his daughter. Success without meaning is failure in disguise. I learned late, but just in time. Today my greatest achievement isn't in financial reports, but in changed lives. Dorothy closed with quiet wisdom. It doesn't matter your social status, janitor or doctor, poor or rich. We all have the power to make a difference in someone's life. You just have to choose to be present. The auditorium erupted in applause. Professionals hardened by hospital routines had tears in their eyes. The message resonated deeply. After the lecture, lines formed. Doctors wanting to learn. Nurses sharing experiences, administrators seeking to implement changes. A young doctor approached Emily. "Doctor, I work in a very poor area. We don't have resources for an elaborate program. What can we do?" Emily smiled, remembering Jaden barefoot in the hospital halls. The most elaborate program in the world started with a poor boy talking to a sick girl. You don't need resources, you need heart. The doctor left inspired, determined to make a difference with what she had. Emily knew another seed had been planted. That night, the original group dined at a simple restaurant, turning down invitations to lavish events. Simplicity had become a choice, not a limitation. "Remember when we thought we had only saved Emily?" Jaden reflected. "Little did we know we were saving the world, one child at a time," Richard added. "There's still so much to do," Dorothy reminded them. "So many children alone in hospitals. That's why we keep going." Emily raised her glass. "For every child who needs a Jaden, for every parent who needs to learn to be present." They toasted once more with orange juice, the symbol of their journey. From hospital corridors to the world stage, they kept their essence: love that heals, presence that transforms. Months later, news shook the group. Madison had been diagnosed with a recurrence of cancer. The fear from the past returned. But this time, there was an entire support network. Emily took on the case personally. Jaden organized psychological support. Richard mobilized resources. Dorothy coordinated constant presence. But most importantly, Tyler never left her side for a second. "It's not fair," Madison cried on the first day. "I fought so hard, graduated, had plans, and you'll still fulfill every one of them." Tyler held her hand. "Remember, together we're stronger." The battle was tough. Aggressive treatments, moments of despair, nights of pain. But Madison was never alone. Every procedure a helping hand, every tear a comforting hug. Emily applied everything she had learned to Madison's care. Cutting-edge medicine paired with unconditional love. Science did its part. The heart did the rest. On a difficult afternoon, Madison asked to see Jaden. "Doctor, how did you stand watching me suffer when we were kids?" Jaden sat beside her, memories flooding his mind. "Because your smile was worth every hard moment. Because true friendship doesn't run from pain, it embraces it together." "I'm afraid I won't make it this time," Madison confessed. Emily was afraid too. But she had something fear couldn't defeat. People who believed in her. Jaden held the young woman's hands. "You have that multiplied by thousands." It was true. Messages poured in from around the world. Children Madison had inspired sent drawings. Families prayed. The movement she helped create now held her up. Tyler organized a virtual vigil. Millions connected, sharing stories of how Madison and her videos had given them hope. She watched, from her room, strengthened by the love spanning the globe. "See?" Tyler showed her the numbers. "You saved all these people. Now it's their turn to save you." Recovery was slow but steady. Every small victory celebrated, every step forward shared. Madison documented it all, turning her struggle into another tool of hope. 6 months later, remission. More cautious this time, more monitored, but real. Madison hugged Emily, crying, "Thank you for never giving up on me." "I learned from the best," Emily pointed at Jaden. "Giving up was never an option for us." The experience transformed Madison even more. Her medical practice gained a unique depth. She knew the disease from both sides and could offer complete understanding. Tyler proposed to her in the same hospital, garden where they played as children. Madison accepted through tears, surrounded by the family the hospital had given them. The wedding was celebrated by the entire medical community, Emily and Jaden as godparents, Richard and Dorothy as honorary parents. The hospital was decorated, with patients participating virtually. "You are living proof that love heals," the officiant said. "That friendships forged in the fire of adversity are unbreakable." During the celebration, a 7-year-old girl, a current patient, timidly approached Madison. "Doctor, do you think I'll find my Tyler?" Madison knelt, her wedding dress brushing the floor. "You know, sweetheart, you don't find Tyler. You recognize him. He's the friend who stays when everyone else leaves. The one who holds your hand when it hurts. Keep your heart open." The girl smiled and ran back to her parents. Madison saw herself years ago, full of fear but also hope. Richard gave the toast, emotional. "Decades ago, a boy told me he knew how to save my daughter. Today I see he saved so much more. He saved my soul, my family, my purpose." To Madison and Tyler, who prove every day that love isn't just a feeling, it's a choice. The choice to be present, to serve, to turn pain into purpose. Everyone raised their glasses as Emily and Jaden exchanged knowing glances. The journey that began in childhood continued through new generations. Years passed. The program became national public policy. No hospitalized child would go without emotional support. Laws were enacted, funds allocated, professionals trained. Richard, now elderly but still active, received international honors. He always shared them with Jaden, the boy who changed his life. Dorothy became a minister, bringing the same integrity from cleaning to politics. Emily and Jaden wrote books, gave lectures and mentored generations, but they never lost their essence. They still visited children, sat by bedsides and offered their presence. Madison and Tyler had children, raised with a heart for service. Their first daughter was named Emily, their second Jaden, a living tribute to those who showed the way. One quiet afternoon, the original four gathered in the same hallway where it all began. The hospital had modernized, but the spirit remained. "If you could go back, would you change anything?" Emily asked. "Not a single comma," Jaden replied instantly. "Every tear, every fear, every struggle brought us here." "I'd hug you all sooner," Richard admitted, "but maybe I needed the pain to value the love." "I wouldn't change a thing," Dorothy concluded. "God writes straight with crooked lines. Our crooked story saved so many lives." They walked through the hospital, greeting staff, waving to patients. In every room, a potential Emily. In every hallway, a possible Jaden. The cycle of love continued. That night, alone at home, Emily opened the diary she'd kept since childhood. On the first page, in the shaky handwriting of someone fighting illness, it read, "Today I met a boy who said I matter, that I'll get better because I have a true friend. I choose to believe him." Below, in her adult handwriting, Emily added, "And he was right. Love heals, presence transforms, friendship saves. Thank you, Jaden, for teaching me that living is more than surviving. It's making a difference in someone's life." She closed the diary, smiling. Tomorrow, there would be more children to visit, more lives to touch, more love to spread. The mission continued. At the hospital, a new pair was forming. Ethan, a 9-year-old in treatment, had met Olivia Grace, a 10-year-old junior volunteer. She brought books, he told jokes. The nurse watched, smiling. "Look at that. Another. Emily and Jaden being born," she remarked to her colleague. "May this hospital never stop creating these stories," the other replied. And it didn't stop. Every day, new connections. Every week, transformations. The legacy of a poor boy who dared to tell a millionaire he knew how to save his daughter, lived in every act of love. Richard, years later in his bed, surrounded by Emily, Jaden, Dorothy, and dozens of grandchildren he had adopted, smiled peacefully. "I've lived 2 lives," he said. "The first, accumulating. The second, giving away. Guess which one was worth it?" "Both, Dad." Emily held his hand. "The first gave you the means, the second gave you a reason to use them." "Wise words from a daughter I almost lost because I didn't know how to love." Richard squeezed her hand. Jaden approached the man who had become his second father. "Thank you, Uncle, for believing in a poor boy, for letting me be part of your family. Thank you, son, for saving not just Emily, but our entire lineage from the emptiness of a life without purpose." Richard embraced Jaden. Dorothy blessed them all, her children of the heart, the cleaning woman who had become the matriarch of a worldwide movement of love. When Richard passed weeks later, the funeral was a celebration of life. Thousands attended. They didn't mourn a loss. They celebrated a legacy. Emily took over as president of the foundation. Jaden, global leadership. Dorothy, the wise counsel. Madison and Tyler, the front lines. Generations united by a common purpose. In the hospital where it all began, a plaque was installed. In this hallway, a boy taught a millionaire that love has no price. That presence is worth more than presence. That healing begins when someone cares. In memory of Richard Blackwell and in honor of Jaden Williams, Emily Blackwell, and Dorothy Williams, may every child find their angel. And they did. Every day new angels appeared. Some rich, some poor, some healthy, some sick. But all united by the truth learned in that hallway. Love heals, friendship saves, presence transforms. The story continues. In every hospital in the United States and the world where the program has reached. In every child who smiles because someone cares. In every father who learns to be present. In every professional who chooses to look beyond the illness. Emily, now with graying hair but the same warrior spirit, still visits the hospital weekly. She always stops at the sacred hallway, closes her eyes, and gives thanks. Thanks to the brave boy who saved her, to the father who learned to love, to the mother who welcomed them, to the hospital that was home, to the illness that taught, to the healing that transformed, but most of all, thanks to love. That remedy without a formula that Jaden brought in daily doses, that Richard learned to administer, that Dorothy always knew how to prescribe, that millions now share. On an ordinary afternoon, Emily found a boy crying in the hallway. She approached gently. "Why the tears, little one?" "My sister's really sick. The doctors said there's nothing more they can do," he sobbed. Emily sat beside him on the floor, unbothered by her white coat. "You know, when I was a little girl and very sick, a boy taught me something important." "What?" The boy wiped his tears. "That there's always something we can do. We can be present. We can show love. We can make sure she never feels alone," Emily said softly. "But I'm just a kid, I can't do anything," he protested. Emily smiled, seeing Jaden in that boy. "The boy who saved me was just a kid too. But he made a difference because he chose to be there. Want me to show you how?" The boy nodded, hopefully. Emily took him to his sister's room, taught him how to talk without mentioning the illness, how to bring joy without forcing it, how to be present without burden. Weeks later, against all odds, the girl showed improvement. The doctors cautious, the family hopeful. The boy never left her side. "It's a miracle," the mother cried. "It's love," Emily gently corrected. "The oldest and most effective medicine." Jaden, hearing about the case, visited the siblings. He recognized in them the same bond he had shared with Emily. The cycle was perpetuating naturally. "You remind me of Emily and me," he told the little ones. "You're famous." The boy exclaimed, "Everyone knows your story." "We're not famous," Jaden corrected. "We're just people who chose to love, like you're choosing now." The girl, still weak but smiling, held her brother's hand. "He's my hero. He stays with me always, even when he's annoying." "Real heroes do that," Jaden ruffled the boy's hair. "They stay especially when it's annoying." Emily and Jaden left the room deeply moved. How many times would they witness this scene? How many lives would be transformed by the simple example of loving presence? "We'll never stop, right?" Emily asked her lifelong friend. "As long as there's a child in need, we'll be here," Jaden affirmed. Dorothy waited for them at reception, now an elderly woman but still active. She embraced her heart's children with infinite pride. "You two are proof that God uses the small to do great things." "You taught us that, Mom." Jaden kissed Dorothy's forehead. "With your example of dignified work and unconditional love." The three walked together into another day of service. Not out of obligation, but by choice. the choice to keep planting seeds of love in wounded hearts. That evening, the national news highlighted, Emotional Support Program marks 30 years of saving lives through presence and love. What began with a boy and a girl in a hospital corridor now reaches millions. Footage of Richard played, his legacy celebrated. Testimonies from transformed families moved the nation, but the spotlight always returned to the unlikely pair, the poor boy and the wealthy girl who proved love knows no social class. Madison, watching at home with her children, explained, "Those are Aunt Emily and Uncle Jaden. They taught Mommy and Daddy that friendship heals." "Can we visit kids at the hospital too?" little Emily asked. "Of course, sweetheart. That's how we keep the chain of kindness going." Madison hugged her children. Tyler arrived from his hospital shift, tired but fulfilled. "How was today?" Madison asked. "We saved another one." A boy who hadn't spoken for months started smiling when his school friend began visiting. Tyler grinned. "Emily and Jaden strike again," Madison teased. "Love strikes again," Tyler corrected, kissing his wife. In their respective homes, Emily and Jaden also watched the report, not out of vanity but gratitude for seeing the movement grow beyond them. Emily called Jaden. "Did you see how many lives we've touched?" "I see how many lives still need touching," Jaden replied. "There's a new child in oncology tomorrow. I'll be there at 7, Emily confirmed. "Me too. Good night, sister." "Good night, brother." They hung up smiling. Siblings not by blood, but by purpose. Forever united in their mission to spread the healing they'd discovered. The love that saves. The presence that transforms, the friendship that endures. And so the story continues. In every hospital where a child isn't alone. In every hallway where an encounter changes destinies. In every heart that chooses to love beyond circumstances. The poor boy who saved the millionaire's daughter multiplied into millions. The millionaire who learned to be a father multiplied into millions. The mother who worked with dignity multiplied into millions. The girl who survived to serve multiplied into millions. Because that's the nature of true love. It multiplies when shared, grows when given, and becomes eternal when lived. Jaden had been right that day in the hallway. He knew how to save Emily. Not with medicines or miraculous treatments, but with the most powerful force in the universe. Unconditional love manifested in constant presence. And what about you, dear listener? In which hospital hallway of life will you find your Emily or your Jaden? Whose life will you transform with your presence? Which child will discover they are loved because you chose to be there? The story of Emily and Jaden is not an exception. It's an invitation to love beyond appearances, to serve beyond convenience, to turn pain into purpose. Somewhere right now, a child cries alone in a hospital. Somewhere right now, a father works too much and loves too little. Somewhere right now, a mother cleans floors dreaming of dignity. Be the Jaden for that child. Be the transformed Richard for that father. Be the Dorothy who lifts her head with pride. Be the Emily who survives to serve. Love heals. Presence transforms. Friendship saves. It has always been this way. It always will be. As long as there are hearts willing to love beyond circumstances, the story continues. In every small gesture that sparks giant change. In every choice to be present when it would be easier to be absent. Emily still keeps the first drawing. Jaden made for her 2 stick figures holding hands under a smiling sun. Simple as love should be. Powerful as love always is. Jaden still has the first little note Emily wrote in shaky handwriting. "Thank you for being my friend when I needed it most." Dorothy framed her first paycheck as a manager, not for the salary, but for the recognition of a life of dignity. Richard left instructions in his will that his epitaph should say only, "He learned to be present." 4 lives intertwined by fate. Millions of lives transformed by their example. A global movement born in a hospital hallway. All because a poor boy had the courage to say, "Sir, I know how to save your daughter." And he truly did. With love, we always know. But it wasn't all smooth sailing in this 3-decade journey. There were moments when faith was tested to the limit, like that rainy December when Jaden, now a grown and respected psychologist, received his own diagnosis. The cruel irony of fate, the same cancer he had helped so many face now lived in his body. Emily was the first to know. Jayden called her for a talk on the same hospital garden bench where they had played as children. "I need to tell you something," he began, his voice trembling. Emily recognized that tone. She'd heard it thousands of times in her office. She gripped her friend's hand tightly. "What did the tests show?" Jayden couldn't speak. He just handed her the envelope with the results. Emily read in silence, tears streaming down her face. "We'll fight," she finally said. "Like we always have. Emily, I've seen too much. I know how this ends when—" Jayden didn't finish. "You've also seen miracles. You've helped create many of them." Emily hugged him. "Now it's your turn to receive the love you planted." The news deeply shook Richard and Dorothy. The patriarch, even in his advanced age, mobilized every resource. Dorothy intensified her prayers and her presence. "My boy can't—" Dorothy couldn't finish the sentence. "He won't," Richard held her. "We saved Emily. We'll save Jayden." Madison and Tyler took over coordinating the program so Emily could focus on her godfather's treatment. The support network they had built now turned to its creator. Jayden's first day of chemotherapy was peculiar. He knew every nurse, every procedure, every side effect. The knowledge that had helped him comfort others now haunted him. "Dr. Jayden, would you like any specific music?" the nurse asked, trying to ease the tension. "Silence is fine, Olivia, thank you," he replied, closing his eyes. Emily never left his side. Just as he had done for her decades ago, she now returned the favor. He told stories, cracked jokes, maintained whatever normalcy he could. "Remember when you pretended the IV was a magic potion?" Emily tried to cheer him up. "And you believed it," Jayden smiled weakly. "I still do. You taught me that the mind helps the body." Emily stroked his hand. Those first weeks were brutal. Jayden, who had always been the strong one, the supporter, now had to learn to accept help. It wasn't easy for someone who had built his identity on serving others. One particularly tough afternoon, after a session that left him especially weak, Jayden broke down. "I can't take it anymore, Emily. The pain, the humiliation of needing help for everything. Jayden, look at me." Emily cupped his face. "You have every right to feel scared, angry, frustrated. You're human, not the superhero everyone thinks you are. What if I can't do it? If, after helping so many, I can't save myself?" The vulnerability in his voice was heartbreaking. "Then you'll have lived a life that mattered. But we're not giving up. We never give up, remember?" Emily was determined. Richard started, sleeping at the hospital, in a chair beside Jayden. The man who once had no time for his own daughter now devoted every second to the son of his heart. "Uncle, you need to rest," Jayden protested. "I'll rest when you're better." Richard was. "You taught me about being present. Let me practice." Dorothy organized prayer chains that spread across the country. Entire communities, people who had never even met Jayden but had been touched by his work, joined together in faith. One night, Jayden woke with a high fever, delirious. He called for a young Emily, reliving moments from the past. Emily held him close, singing the same song he used to sing to her. "It's okay, Jayden, I'm here, I always will be," she repeated like a mantra. The fever broke, but the scare lingered. Emily called an emergency meeting with the entire medical team. She wouldn't accept losing Jayden, not after everything. "I want every option, experimental, alternative, anything," she demanded. "Doctor, Emily, you know we've done all we can." Dr. Williams tried to reason. "We haven't done everything as long as he's still breathing," Emily cut in. "Jayden never gave up on me. I won't give up on him." It was Tyler who brought a possibility. An experimental treatment still in development, not yet fully approved, but with promising results. "The risks are high," he explained, but knowing Godfather Jayden, he'd rather fight than fade away. Emily presented the option to Jayden. He listened carefully, the psychologist in him analyzing the odds, the patient in him weighing hope. "What would you do in my place?" he asked Emily. "I'd fight. With you by my side, I'd fight to the end," she answered without hesitation. "Then let's fight," Jayden decided. The experimental treatment required total isolation for weeks. Only one person could stay with him. Emily didn't hesitate. It would be her. "But your work, your patients," Jayden protested. "You're my priority, just like I was yours." Emily said firmly. The weeks in isolation tested their physical and emotional endurance. Emily created a routine to keep Jayden mentally active: memory games, mindfulness exercises, deep conversations. "How you know what scares me the most?" Jayden confessed one sleepless night. "What?" "Leaving the work unfinished. So many kids still need help." His voice cracked. "Jayden, you've already done more than 1,000 lives could, and you'll keep doing more," Emily assured him. "This is just a pause, not the end." The treatment was aggressive. There were days when Jayden could barely open his eyes, nights when Emily held his hand as he shook in pain. But there were also moments of hope, when tests showed small improvements. Outside, Richard and Dorothy kept vigil. Madison and Tyler made sure the program kept running. The support network worked in perfect sync. One day, Jayden woke up different. There was color in his face, a sparkle in his eyes. Emily, exhausted after weeks of intensive care, smiled with hope. "How do you feel?" "Like I could eat a grilled cheese sandwich," Jayden replied, and they both laughed through tears. It was the first real sign of improvement. The tests confirmed the tumor was responding. There was still a long road ahead, but hope had been reborn. When they finally left isolation, they were welcomed as heroes. Hospital staff applauded, patients cried with joy. Jayden, still weak but standing, hugged each one. "You gave me strength," he thanked them. "Every prayer, every positive thought, I felt them all." Dorothy was the first to embrace him, the son she had nearly lost, the man she had raised with so much love. "My warrior," she whispered, "I knew God wouldn't take you yet." Richard, tears streaming unashamedly, hugged both, his children of the heart. "You've taught me that family isn't just blood. It's choice, it's presence, it's love," he declared. Jayden's recovery was slow but steady. Emily adapted all the protocols they had created for other patients, applying them to her best friend. The experience as a patient deepened her practice even further. "Now I completely understand the fear," Jayden confessed during a physical therapy session. "I'll be a better psychologist." "You were already the best," Emily corrected. "Now you'll be even more human." Madison and Tyler documented the entire journey with Jayden's permission. They wanted to show that even caregivers need care. That strength also means accepting vulnerability. "Godfather, you taught us that heroes cry," Madison said during a recording. "Thank you for showing us that in action." 6 months later, Jayden received the diagnosis everyone had hoped for: complete remission. The cancer had been defeated, but the lessons would remain forever. At the celebration party, modest as Jayden preferred, he gave a speech that moved everyone. "I've learned that giving and receiving love are two sides of the same coin. That allowing yourself to be cared for is just as noble as caring for others. That vulnerability is strength in disguise. Emily saved me twice. When we were kids, giving me purpose. Now, giving me back my life. There are no words to thank her." Emily interrupted him with a tight hug. "Siblings don't say thank you, they just love," she whispered. Jayden's experience brought a new dimension to the program. They created specific support for healthcare professionals who fall ill, recognizing the unique complexities of those who care for others but need care themselves. Richard funded a retreat center for healthcare workers where they could recharge and tend to their own mental health. Dorothy coordinated support programs for caregivers' families. "We've learned that caring for the caregiver is essential," Richard explained to investors. Jayden almost died because he took too long to accept he needed help. The center was named Emily and Jayden House, where caregivers find care. The opening brought healthcare professionals from across the country. During the event, a young doctor approached Jayden. "Doctor, I was burned out, ready to quit medicine. Your example showed me I can be vulnerable and still keep helping." "We all can. Strength isn't about never falling, it's about always getting back up," Jayden replied. Emily watched her friend, now fully recovered, interacting with the professionals. The boy who had saved her, the man she had saved. The perfect circle of love. Years passed. The program became a global benchmark. Universities taught the Emily Jayden method as a required course. Hospitals competed to implement the practices, At an international conference in Geneva, Emily and Jaden were honored by the World Health Organization, the highest recognition, for a life dedicated to humanizing care. On stage, before ministers and dignitaries, they kept their usual simplicity. "We didn't do anything extraordinary," Emily began. "We just reminded the world of something we've always known. Love heals." "It started with 2 scared kids in a hospital," Jaden continued. "Today, millions of children are no longer alone. That's our greatest reward." The audience, composed of some of the brightest minds in global medicine, gave them a standing ovation. They weren't just applauding 2 professionals, but a revolution that had begun with simple acts of care. Richard and Dorothy, now very elderly but present, wept with pride. Their children by heart had changed the world with the same simplicity that had transformed their lives. Back in the United States, routine resumed. Despite international recognition, Emily and Jaden kept their feet on the ground, literally in the halls of the hospital where it all began. One ordinary afternoon, they found 2 teenagers arguing in the hospital garden. "You don't get it, I'm going to die, and you're just sitting there saying everything will be fine," the girl shouted. "I just want to help," the boy replied, frustrated. Emily and Jaden exchanged glances. It was like looking into a mirror of the past. They approached gently. "Can we help?" Emily offered. "She won't let me stay close," the boy explained, tears in his eyes. "She says I don't want to see her sick. And I don't want him to see me like this," the girl added. Jaden sat beside the boy, Emily beside the girl. With endless patience, they shared their story, how fear almost drove them apart, how presence overcame appearances. "Are you still friends today?" the girl asked in awe. "More than friends, we're family," Emily answered. "And all because he insisted on staying when I tried to push him away." "But what if I—" the girl couldn't finish. "If the worst happens, would you rather face it alone or with someone you love beside you?" Jaden asked gently. The girl began to cry. The boy hugged her, and she finally let him. "Promise you won't leave," she whispered. "I promise," he replied firmly. Emily and Jaden stepped back quietly, letting the young ones reconcile. Another seed planted. "It never gets old, does it?" Emily remarked. "As long as hearts need connecting, we'll be here," Jaden affirmed. That night, Richard gathered the family for an important announcement. At 90, he felt the weight of age, but not of his mission. "I'm leaving my entire fortune to the foundation," he declared, "but with one condition." Everyone waited anxiously. "That you never lose the essence, that every dollar goes toward keeping children accompanied, families united, and professionals compassionate," he said, looking at each of them. "Money without purpose is just paper. With purpose, it's transformation. Dad, your fortune has already changed millions of lives," Emily hugged him. "No, you changed them. I just learned to invest in what matters," Richard corrected. Dorothy, at 85, still coordinated training programs. Her energy seemed endless when it came to serving others. "Miss Dorothy, you need to rest," Madison often suggested. "I'll rest when no one else is in need," she'd reply, smiling. But time is relentless. One spring morning, Dorothy didn't wake up. She passed peacefully in her sleep after a lifetime of service and love. The grief was profound. Jaden had lost not just a mother, but the woman who showed him dignity knows no social standing. Emily had lost her second mother, the one who'd welcomed her without judgment. The funeral was a celebration of life. Thousands attended. Former janitors she'd helped educate, executives she'd taught to serve, children who'd grown up under her care. "My mother taught me that work dignifies, but love transforms," Jaden said, his voice breaking. "She transformed every life she touched." Richard, devastated by the loss of his dear friend, insisted on carrying the casket, the millionaire carrying the cleaning lady, a powerful image of a friendship that transcended class. "Dorothy taught me that true wealth lies in service," he declared. "I promise to honor her legacy until my last day." Months later, Richard also passed away. He died smiling, according to Emily, who was by his side. His last words were for Jaden, "Take care of her as you took care of me. You two are my greatest treasure." The 2 funerals in quick succession deeply shook Emily and Jaden. The pillars of their chosen family were gone, but the legacy lived on. "Now it's up to us," Emily told Jaden the day after Richard's funeral. "We're the guardians of what we've built." "We're not guardians," Jaden corrected. "We're continuers. They live on in everything we do," and so they did. With Madison and Tyler by their side, they expanded the program even further. They founded Dorothy University, training compassionate professionals. They established the Richard Institute, funding treatments and research. But most of all, they remained present. Every day at the hospital, every child welcomed, every family guided, every professional inspired. Time passed. Emily and Jaden grew old together, like the siblings they had chosen to be. White hair, wrinkles from years of smiling, hands calloused from service. One special afternoon, they were surprised. At the hospital, the hallway where they first met had been turned into a memorial. Photos of their journey, testimonies of lives changed, a timeline of love. "What is this?" Emily asked, moved. "It's the recognition that you two changed global medicine," Madison explained. "This hallway is now a treasure of humanity." Children in treatment were brought to meet the heroes of the hallway. Emily and Jaden sat on the floor as they always did, to be at their level. "Are you really heroes?" a little boy asked. "No," Jaden replied. "We're just friends who chose never to give up on each other." "And that makes you heroes," a little girl concluded, hugging them. Tyler recorded it all, emotional. The new generation learning from the masters, the eternal cycle of love renewing itself. That night, Emily and Jaden sat on the garden bench, the same one where they'd had so many important conversations. "It was worth it, wasn't it?" Emily asked, gazing at the stars. "Every tear, every fear, every struggle," Jaden confirmed. "You gave me purpose, Emily." "You gave me life, Jaden," she replied. "Twice." They sat in silence for long minutes, each lost in memories of a journey that had transformed not just their lives, but millions of others. The hospital, once a place of fear and pain, now pulsed with hope and love. "Emily," Jaden broke the silence, "I need to tell you something." Emily turned, recognizing the seriousness in her friend's voice. "The routine tests," he began, but Emily interrupted. "No, please, not again," she whispered. "No, it's not that," Jaden held her hand. "The tests showed something different. My heart is failing. It's not cancer. It's the price of so much treatment." Emily felt the world spin. After so many battles won, his body was demanding its due. "How long?" she managed to ask. "The doctors don't know. It could be months. It could be years," Jaden said calmly. "But I want to live. Every remaining day to the fullest. We'll find treatment, get a transplant, something." Then Emily was already planning. "Emily, stop," Jaden soothed her. "I've lived more than I ever dreamed. I've seen our work change the world. I'm not afraid to go. I'm grateful I stayed." Tears streamed freely down Emily's face. How could she imagine life without her constant companion? "I don't know how to live without you," she confessed. "Yes, you do. You're the strongest woman I know," Jaden hugged her. "And you won't be without me. I'll be in every child you help, in every life you touch." In the following days, they kept to their normal routine. Hospital visits, consultations, lectures. But there was a new urgency, an awareness of finiteness that made every moment precious. Madison and Tyler noticed the change and confronted their godparents. "What's going on?" Madison asked directly. Emily looked at Jaden, who nodded. They told them the truth. The silence that followed was heavy with pain and disbelief. "It's not fair," Tyler murmured. "After everything you've been through." "Life isn't about fairness," Jaden replied wisely. "It's about what we do with the time we have, and I choose to live each day to the fullest." Madison hugged her godfather, crying like the child she once was in his arms. "You can't go. We still have so much work to do." "The work continues with you," Jaden stroked her hair. "Emily and I planted the seeds. You are the forest." They decided not to make the diagnosis public. Jaden didn't want pity or premature goodbyes. He wanted normalcy, work, purpose, right until the end. But they prepared everything. They documented every protocol, recorded guidance, and organized the succession. Their legacy would be preserved and expanded. One special morning, they received a letter that would change their final months together. It was from Olivia Grace, the first child they had helped after creating the formal program over 20 years ago. Dear Dr. Emily and Dr. Jaden, today I graduated from medical school. I'm specializing in pediatric oncology. You saved me not once but twice, first from cancer, then from a lack of purpose. I've enclosed a photo, my 5 children, all healthy, all raised to serve. The oldest wants to be a psychologist like Uncle Jaden. The youngest says she'll be a doctor, like Aunt Emily. You can't imagine how many lives your existence has created. I'm not just talking about the ones you saved directly, but the ones born because you gave us a chance to live. I know you don't like tributes, but I need you to know you are the reason I breathe, love, and serve. And like me, millions of others. With eternal love, Olivia Grace. Emily and Jaden wept in each other's arms as they read the letter. There was the proof that every sacrifice had been worth it. See, Emily said through tears, you'll live forever, Jaden, in every life we've saved. We'll live forever, he corrected. Our love, our friendship, our purpose. The weeks passed. Jaden grew weaker, but kept his spirit strong. He reduced in-person consultations, but intensified. Online guidance reaching even more people. Emily never left his side. Work, home, personal life. Everything revolved around cherishing every moment with her chosen brother. One afternoon, as they rested after a particularly difficult session of palliative chemotherapy, Jaden made a request. I want to go back to the hallway. Which hallway? Emily asked, though she already knew the answer. Our hallway, where it all began, he smiled. I need to be there one more time. With Tyler and Madison's help, they arranged the visit. The hospital prepared a discreet reception, respecting Jaden's wish not to turn it into an event. When they reached the hallway, now a memorial, Jaden stopped exactly where he had tugged on Richard's Italian suit decades earlier. It was here, he said, emotional. Here we changed the world, Emily. You changed the world, Emily corrected. I just followed your lead. We changed it together, like always. Jaden sat on the floor, a gesture he maintained even as he weakened. Emily sat beside him. Madison and Tyler joined them. Soon, hospital staff, patients, and families all sat down, forming a circle of love. I want to tell a story, Jaden began, his voice weak but clear, about a poor boy who believed love could heal, and a rich girl who proved him right. For an hour, Jaden narrated his version of the story, details Emily hadn't known, fears he'd never shared, hopes that had sustained him. Everyone listened, spellbound. The boy grew up, became a doctor, saved lives, he continued, but the greatest life he saved was his own, by choosing to love unconditionally. By the end, the hallway was filled with emotion. People who had known the story for years listened as if hearing it for the first time. Dr. Jaden, a child in a wheelchair, approached. Are you afraid? No, sweetheart, Jaden answered honestly. I lived loving and being loved. There is no death for those who live like this. That night, Jaden had the best sleep in months. Emily kept watch by his side, just as he had done so many times for her. At dawn, Jaden woke with unusual clarity. Emily, I need to work, he announced. Jaden, you need to rest, she protested. I'll rest later. Right now I have lives to touch, he said firmly. He spent the entire day attending to patients virtually, children from every continent, professionals seeking guidance, families in need of hope. Emily watched in awe at the energy love provided. That evening, exhausted but fulfilled, Jaden asked to go to the garden. They sat on their usual bench, now under a perfect starry sky. Emily, promise me something, he asked. Anything. Keep smiling. Keep loving. Keep saving lives. Jaden held her hands. But most of all, keep being happy. Your happiness was my cure. I promise. Emily barely managed to speak through tears. And thank you, Jaden continued, for letting me be part of your life. It was the greatest honor of my existence. The honor was mine, brother. Emily hugged him. Always mine. They held each other for long minutes. When Emily finally looked, Jaden had passed. serene, smiling, at peace, exactly as he had lived. Surrounded by love. The grief was worldwide. Messages poured in from every continent, lives touched, transformed, saved by the man who had started as a poor boy with a giant heart. Emily, devastated but determined, organized the celebration of life Jaden deserved. It wouldn't be a funeral, it would be gratitude. The event filled the largest auditorium in the city. Screens broadcast it to the world. Every testimony, a life changed. Every tear, gratitude in disguise. Emily spoke last. Jaden taught me that love isn't just a feeling, it's a daily choice. That presence matters more than presence. That serving is the greatest privilege. He lives in every child who smiles in a hospital, in every professional who chooses to humanize care, in every parent who learns to be present. But most of all, he lives in me, and through me, he'll keep saving lives until my last breath. In the months that followed, Emily threw herself into her work with renewed intensity. Every child she helped was a tribute to Jaden. Every smile she earned, a shared victory. Madison and Tyler took on more responsibilities, trained by their mentors. The program not only continued but grew exponentially. A year after Jaden's passing, Emily received an unexpected visitor, an elderly, well-dressed man, clearly wealthy. "Dr. Emily? My name is William James. You don't know me, but you saved my life." Emily didn't recognize his face. 40 years ago, I was a poor boy in the hospital. A wealthy girl in treatment used to talk to me in secret. Mr. Richard caught me one day, but instead of throwing me out, he encouraged me. Emily's eyes widened. She vaguely remembered other boys besides Jaden in those early days. That experience changed my life. I studied, succeeded, always remembering that someone important saw me as an equal. William continued. "I came to thank you and offer help. I want to fund 1,000 new program units across the country." Emily wept as she hugged the man. Jaden had been right. Love multiplied endlessly. With William's support and that of other business leaders moved by the story, the program reached every corner of the United States. No hospitalized child would ever be alone again. Emily, now with completely white hair but the energy of a young woman, kept up her routine of daily visits. She always stopped at the memorial in the hallway, silently conversing with Jaden. During one of these visits, she came across a scene that made her pause. A ragged little boy was talking to a wealthy girl in treatment. History repeating itself, in a new generation. She discreetly approached and heard the boy say, "Don't be afraid, I'll be here every day. A true friend doesn't walk away." Emily smiled through her tears. Jaden was there, alive in that gesture of love. Years later, Emily also felt the call. At 85, surrounded by thousands of children of the heart, she passed away peacefully. Her last words were, "I'm going to find my brother. Keep loving." The legacy endures. In every humanized hospital, in every child who is supported, in every professional who chooses presence over haste. The sacred hallway became a sanctuary of hope. Plaques with photos of Emily and Jaden as children, teens, adults, and elders show a friendship that transcended time and death. Millions visit annually. Parents learn about presence. Professionals learn about humanization. Children learn about true friendship. Madison and Tyler, now leaders of the global movement, keep the essence simple. Love heals, presence transforms, friendship eternalizes. Somewhere right now, a poor boy approaches a sick, wealthy child. Somewhere right now, a workaholic father learns to be present. Somewhere right now, a professional chooses to humanize care. The story continues, multiplied in millions of versions, each one unique, all connected by the golden thread of unconditional love. Emily and Jaden proved we don't need superpowers to be heroes. We just need to choose to love beyond circumstances, to serve beyond convenience, to stay beyond difficulties. The boy who said, "Mister, I know how to save your daughter," truly did. He didn't just save Emily, he taught all of humanity that the most powerful cure has always been available. Love manifested in constant presence. Today, when you visit someone in the hospital, when you choose to be present instead of just paying bills, when you decide a child deserves attention regardless of social class, you'll be continuing Emily and Jaden's story. Because that's the beauty of true love. It doesn't die with those who lived it. It multiplies in those who witnessed it. Somewhere in heaven, a boy and a girl play forever, knowing their love saved the world, one child at a time. The end of the story. Did you enjoy this emotional journey? Tell us where you're watching from and what touched you most. Subscribe to the channel and leave a like so we can keep bringing stories that warm hearts and transform lives.